Think of a moment when you were completely stuck. Not confused, stuck. Two choices, two directions, neither one moving. You've been there. Maybe you're there right now. A relationship that could go either way. A decision you've turned over 100 times. An argument where both sides are right, everything balanced, nothing moving. And then something shifts. Not a compromise, not a coin flip. Something entirely different enters the picture. A conversation you didn't expect. A realization at 3 a.m. A piece of information that reframes everything. Suddenly the stalemate breaks. Not because one side won, but because the game changed. That moment, that intrusion, is what this episode is about. In the simulation, it has a name. It is the number 3. Welcome back to The Electric Soul, the series exploring the hypothesis that our reality is a structured simulation and that ancient systems like astrology, Hermetic philosophy, and the electric universe aren't superstition. They are the user manual. In earlier episodes, we established that the simulation runs on 3 variables: number, time, and space, and at its foundation is duality, 1 and 2, yang and yin, expansion and contraction, charge and ground. Duality creates structure, but it also creates a problem. Two opposing forces, left to themselves, cancel each other out. They oscillate, they loop, they produce the same output indefinitely. A simulation built only on duality would be static, a system with no mechanism for evolution, no way to generate genuinely new states. So the programmer needed a third variable, not a mediator between the two, not a compromise, something orthogonal, a force that doesn't choose sides but changes the dimension the conflict is happening in. That is 3, and once you see it, you will find it everywhere. Start with the most fundamental stable structure in physical reality, the atom. The proton carries positive charge, the electron carries negative charge. In a hydrogen atom, the simplest case, you have one of each. They are in permanent tension, held in dynamic balance. But hydrogen is unstable at scale. It reacts violently with almost everything. To build stable matter, the kind that holds together long enough to form stars, planets, and the molecules of life, you need the neutron. The neutron carries no charge. It does not oppose the proton or the electron. What it does is bind. Inside the nucleus, neutrons act as a kind of structural glue, mediating the repulsive force between positively charged protons and allowing the nucleus to hold together at all. Remove the neutrons and the nucleus flies apart. The duality alone cannot sustain structure. The neutron is not a third side. It is what makes the system workable. It enables the duality to produce something stable rather than just collapsing back into chaos. In the language of this series, the neutron is the third force made physical. In the periodic table, the first 2 elements, hydrogen and helium, represent the fundamental polarity, reactive and inert, bonding and complete. The third element, lithium, is something different. Lithium is extraordinarily reactive. It doesn't just participate in chemistry, it initiates it. It is a trigger, a catalyst, an opener. In modern medicine, lithium is used to regulate mood disorders, literally to introduce stability into systems oscillating between extremes. The third element in the periodic table functions, chemically and symbolically, as a force of initiation. It opens the field. In thermodynamics, a phase transition is what happens when a system reaches a threshold and transforms entirely, water becoming steam, a magnetic material losing its magnetism above a critical temperature, matter-shifting state. What causes a phase transition is not the addition of more of the same energy, it's the introduction of energy past a critical point, a third condition that the two-state system cannot absorb. The result is not a point between the two states, it is a new state that neither of the original two could produce alone. This is what 3 does in the simulation. It does not split the difference, it generates the next dimension. Consider time itself. Space has 4 dimensions, length, width, depth, and the fourth, form, the boundary that makes a thing a thing. We will return to 4 in the next episode, but time has 3, beginning, middle, end. This is not a human convention, it is the structure of every process that actually occurs. A fire starts, burns, and dies. A thought arises, develops, and resolves. A life begins, unfolds, and concludes. Without three, there is no sequence. Without sequence, there is no development. Without development, there is no story, and no simulation worth running. Now we go to myth. Because the ancients encoded their understanding of three in a story that is far more precise than it first appears, the setup Prometheus is a titan, a being older than the Olympian gods, belonging to an earlier order of reality. His name in Greek means forethought, the capacity to see consequences before they arrive. He is not just intelligent, he operates with a different relationship to time. The story begins with a dispute over sacrifice. Prometheus tricks Zeus into accepting the bones and fat of a sacrificial animal, the impressive-looking but insubstantial portion, while humans keep the meat, the actual nourishment. This act establishes a structural divide. Humans retain the substance, gods receive the symbol. Zeus, outmaneuvered, responds by withholding fire from humanity. This is not simply punitive. Fire represents the capacity for transformation, not just heat and cooking, but metallurgy, craft, technique, and at the deepest level, the illumination of understanding. To withhold fire is to keep humanity at a particular developmental stage. Prometheus steals fire and gives it to humans anyway. What fire actually represents, and that parallel to the number three is not accidental. At the material level, fire is warmth, cooking, survival technology. At the cognitive level, fire is technique, craft, the ability to reshape the physical world through applied intelligence. At the metaphysical level, fire is illumination, the inner light of awareness, the capacity to see what is actually happening rather than what appears to be happening. Prometheus does not give humanity a tool, he gives them a stage of development they have not yet reached through their own unfolding. He collapses the timeline. He introduces knowledge before readiness. The punishment and what it means, Zeus's response is precise and permanent. Prometheus is chained to a rock. Each day an eagle eats his liver. Each night, because he is immortal, it regenerates. The torment is infinite and exactly calibrated. Not death, but endless repetition. Consider what the liver represented in ancient thought. It was the seat of life force, the organ of vitality and generation. The eagle, Zeus's bird, the symbol of divine authority and far-seeing vision, consumes it daily. The punishment is not arbitrary cruelty, it is a statement about consequence. When knowledge is introduced into a system before that system is structured to integrate it, the knowledge does not simply add to what is already there. It disrupts the developmental sequence. It changes what people do, which changes what they choose, which changes what consequences they generate, rippling forward in ways the original timeline did not contain. In the simulation framework, Prometheus violated the timing protocol. He introduced a higher-order variable, fire awareness, the third force of illumination, into avatars whose base programming had not yet generated the capacity to handle it stably. The result is the human condition as we experience it. Extraordinary capability paired with extraordinary instability. The capacity to understand almost anything paired with the recurring inability to integrate what we understand into consistent action. The eagle returns every day. The liver regenerates every night. The cycle repeats. Sound familiar? Every significant symbolic system encodes this same principle, and the convergence is too consistent to be coincidence. In Pythagorean mathematics, 3 is the first number considered genuinely active and generative. 1 is unity, 2 is division, 3 is the first number that produces movement. In the tarot, the third major arcana is the Empress, the card of creative expression, a form emerging from potential, of the generative principle made manifest. She is what happens when the raw polarity of the magician and the high priestess produces something new. Not 1, not 2, the third thing that emerges from their interaction. In the I Ching, the third position in a hexagram represents the first sun, the initiator. the one who breaks new ground and bears the friction of moving first. In Hermetic philosophy, the principle of rhythm, one of the 7 laws, describes the pendulum motion of duality. But the master of the law learns to use a third point of awareness to step outside the swing rather than being carried by it. Each system arrives at the same structural insight. Duality oscillates, and 3 is what ends the oscillation, not by stopping it, but by introducing a new axis. We have moved through science, through the zodiac, through myth, and through symbolic systems. Now let's bring it back to the personal level, because this is a simulation you are running, and understanding its architecture changes how you operate within it. The dual forces in your life are real, the tension between what you want and what you have, between who you are and who you feel you should be, between the demands of others and the requirements of your own development. These are not problems to solve, they are the operating conditions of the simulation. What breaks a stalemate is never more force applied to one side. It is always the introduction of a third element, new information, a shift in perspective, an unexpected relationship, a question that reframes the entire situation. The mind, as Mercury's domain, is both your access to the third force and your primary obstacle to it. The thinking function can generate the insight that breaks the loop, but it can also generate endless new loops to replace the old ones. This is why 3 is associated not just with thought, but with the moment beyond thought, the pause where something other than analysis operates. Prometheus's story is a warning about what happens when the third force is introduced without the ground to receive it. Your Mercury placement describes your particular configuration of this dynamic, how your thinking module is set up, where it excels, and where it tends to overload. Knowing this is not a limitation, it is a specification. You cannot upgrade hardware you don't know you have. Every time a stalemate in your life breaks, every time a conflict dissolves, not through victory but through the emergence of a new understanding, you are experiencing the number 3. It does not choose sides. It does not compromise. It changes the dimension the conflict was occurring in. The programmer built this into the simulation at every level, in the structure of matter, in the organization of time, in the architecture of the zodiac, in the myths that have survived for millennia because they encode something true about how reality operates. 3 is the force that makes evolution possible within a system governed by duality. Remain attentive to where it appears in your own experience. The third thing, the unexpected variable, is always the one worth watching. In the next episode, we move to the number 4, how it structures space, how the 4 elements encode the simulation's fundamental substance types, and how the 90-degree square aspect generates the tension and direction that forms the governing script of an avatar's life. If this material is proving useful, register that response, subscribe, leave a comment, share it with someone who is paying attention. Until the next session, remain attentive and continue observing.